So this is your natural birth blueprint masterclass. And if you pay attention to what I'm going to be teaching you in this presentation, you are absolutely going to be able to avoid a C-section. You're absolutely going to be able to avoid an unnecessary induction. You're going to be able to avoid a lot of the medical intervention that happens in birth. Let me just share my story very quickly with you. I was a mom who did not want to have a single thing happen to me during my birth. I wanted to just be able to show up and birth my baby. Personally, I wanted to be at home, but that didn't turn out the first time. It did the second time. And if you've been following me for a while, then you know my story. And if you're not, then just keep paying attention to this presentation because I'm going to show you exactly how you can get the birth you want without having to fight, beg, compromise. No more crumbling under the pressure. No more giving up on your dreams. No more giving in to what your care provider or your partner or your family says is best. Ultimately, you are in control of your destiny here. So if you follow what I'm going to teach you, you're going to be able to get a birth where you are more confident in your own ability to birth. You are not going to give in to unnecessary intervention. You're going to recognize when an intervention is actually needed versus when it's not. You're going to be able to have that ecstatic birth that you've always dreamed of. You're possibly even going to have an easier postpartum recovery. Although I'm just going to caution you, do not do what I did, which is to go out shopping the very next day. Stay home, enjoy your baby, and enjoy the fact that you don't feel like you're in a whole lot of pain. And you'll be able to nurse your baby a lot easier as well, because a lot of the time, what's happening in birth is what causes all of these problems with milk not coming in or you're traumatized. So I'm just going to start sharing my slides. Okay, so this is the natural birth blueprint, how to get your natural birth and avoid falling into the biggest traps that lead to cesareans and inductions. So first of all, I'm going to ask you the question, why do so many moms start out planning a natural birth, but then they end up throwing their birth plan out the window? Is it that birth doesn't work? Is it that you have to lower your expectations? Is it that all births are traumatic? Is it that's just the way birth is? Is it that birth is inherently dangerous and you'd be crazy to have a home birth? Or is it just something else is going on and you're not aware of it? So this is the question I started to ask myself because I was wondering why birth doesn't work. And I've discovered some secrets that I'm going to be sharing with you in this presentation as to why so many natural birth plans end up failing. I mean, you've got all the templates, you've watched the Empowered Birth Workshop, and you know now that if you are planning a natural birth, you need to play things a little differently. So in this presentation, you're going to learn how natural birth actually works. You're going to learn the biggest things that are getting in your way of having a natural birth. You're going to learn about the 5 things that you definitely need to optimize to get the birth you really want and we're always capable of. And you're also going to hear 2 stories of moms whose bodies failed them, who went on to have completely natural births after learning these secrets. So my name is Carly Bonderud, if you haven't been following for a while. And I'm a childbirth educator and a birth empowerment coach. I've also been a virtual doula and a birth advocate for a number of years. For the last 10 years, I've been in the birth community, basically getting fired up and telling moms all about what is going on in our maternity care system, because I really took the time to peel back behind the curtain and see what was really going on. I have a psychology background, and I also happen to know a lot about socioeconomic dynamics and demographics, and I started to dive deep into the statistics. And what I found was quite shocking, that we had a very high C-section rate. So what I started to do is I recognized that the medical system wasn't going to help these moms, and that if moms continued to follow the information that they were getting in mainstream, that they were going to keep falling into what I call the natural birth traps. So what do? Basically, I help women get past their fear so they can get their dream birth. If that's you, then let me just tell you that you have come into a culture of fear. You've come into a culture where you have a lot of doubts about whether you can actually do this. If you've previously had traumatic births or your family members have, you might even wonder if your body is even capable of this. Can you really give birth without a single intervention? Can you really give birth without anybody touching you? Can you really give birth in your own power without anybody telling you what you're allowed to do or what you're not allowed to do or telling you how to do it? Well, I have a lot of experience with supporting physiological birth and advocacy. And I also see the same issue on both sides. So I bring a lot of multiple perspectives to this, and I'm really going to tell you some secrets that the general public is not aware of. In fact, you tend to only learn about these things once you become a birth worker and once you start to see the struggles. A lot of birth workers, they go in and they've got these wide-eyed expectations of how things are going to be, and they get all excited about supporting their clients, and then they end up burning out. And I'll tell you why as we go through this presentation, because this is important for you to understand what's going on so that you don't have to fight, beg, or compromise. You're not giving up, you're not giving in, you're not crumbling under the pressure. Once you understand what's really going on, you're going to be able to see why birth is not working when you are planning it in a medical system, and what you can do even if you're going to the hospital so that you can actually get that. As I said, I spent 10 years as a birth advocate. I spent 10 years going out there and telling moms about their rights and their options. And the response was just phenomenal. People said this needs to be taught more. So that's why I'm doing this now, is I really do believe that this is the way forward. This is the way for you to actually get your dream birth. I'm also a mother of 2 high energy kids. You can see my son Hunter and my daughter Michaela in the picture. This is a little bit older. My daughter is now 7 years old. My son is now 10. When this picture was taken, he was about 8 and she was 5. So the thing is that I love to take off to the beach with these kids, and that's why I've built my online practice for coaching. And now I'm also building some more programs to help moms to plan and get their natural births, because I've had a lot of success in helping these moms. And finally, I just realized I could create a lifestyle around this. And this is basically what I do. This is what I love to do. So if you're looking for someone who actually knows the ins and outs of natural birth and can help you plan and get it, even if you've had a previous C-section, then you are definitely going to want to pay attention to this presentation and stay to the end, because I have something for you. All right, so here are the typical questions that I get asked quite often. And these are the ones I see in the mom groups all the time. Why didn't my body work? If you've had a previous C-section or induction, or you didn't go into labor on your own, or you didn't dilate, or your pelvis is too small and your baby got stuck, or maybe your care provider said that you were high risk, so they wouldn't let you have the natural birth you want. They won't let me go past 40 weeks. They won't let me go past 39 weeks. They won't let me get away with not having the epidural. They won't let me. They won't let me. This is something that you hear most often. And the other one is, I'm high risk. I have to. Well, I'm going to tell you a story in a minute about why you don't actually have to, and the fact that you can actually have your birth any way you want, even if you have the odds stacked against you. So here's the first lesson that you need to know. Your body is designed to birth. Babies are born accidentally without a doctor or midwife. Even high-risk pregnancies like twins, breech, VBAC, even breech VBAC, I've seen this, where moms are on their way to the hospital and suddenly baby's coming and they have to pull over to the side of the road and baby's out. Now, if they are in a hospital environment, it's automatically a C-section in most cases. Automatically, the doctor is trying to manage this birth. So why does it happen spontaneously? Well, it's because it's a physiological process. Your body is going to do it. If you're stuck in the middle of nowhere, your body will birth. This is not a medical emergency. However, as you're going to learn further in this presentation, unfortunately, we have this idea that birth is a medical emergency and it gets heavily controlled. However, when birth isn't messed with, it usually works. And it can be relatively painless. Or you think that you're not even that far into labor based on the arbitrary signs that you've been told to focus on that don't actually mean anything, such as dilation, effacement, bloody show, your water's releasing, having really strong, powerful contractions. Sometimes the contractions might be quite mild and only ramp up at the very end. I've seen this a lot with a lot of the moms that I've worked with who had previous inductions, or they had their labor augmented with Pitocin or had their waters broken manually. They were in the hospital. They were very stressed out and they're like, you know, it was really, really painful. I don't know if I can go through this again. But then they go and plan a home birth because they don't want to go back to that hospital that traumatized them. And they think, I don't think things are really picking up. And then 5 minutes later, contractions ramp up. And then 10 minutes later, a baby is out. This even happened to me, as you will learn in a second. So I had a very stop and start labor with my daughter. The first time that I had my natural birth, it was in the hospital. The reason I was in the hospital was because I was tricked out of it. I was talked out of my home birth. I was told I wasn't allowed to have it. And so I believed them. I believed my care provider. I believed that they knew best for me. And I gave away my power. But the second time, I knew better. I knew that there was something going on and there was no way in hell I was going back to the hospital. So even though I was having this very stop and start labor over a course of weeks, I knew I was not going to get assessed. I wasn't going to get checked. I wasn't going to have anybody do things to me because I knew that there's just something was going on. Maybe my daughter needed to get into a different position. Maybe it was just practice. I don't know exactly what it was. I think there was something about the fears that I had or something in my mindset was off. As I'm going to tell you in a minute, there's an issue with fear. And what happened basically is that I was going from 37 weeks all the way until my due date where nothing was happening. I would get the sensations and then they would stop. I would get the sensations and then they would stop. And then I'd go a few days without them and then I'd have the sensations again. So the thing is that over the course of weeks, I was getting very, very frustrated. I was also in the birth community, so I knew that this was called prodromal labor. Eventually, what happened is I did go into labor on my due date, but I ignored it. And then the next morning, things started to ramp up again. So I had a 24-hour labor with my daughter. And then all of a sudden, when I called the midwife and the doula to me, and they were trying to get her into different positions, they were doing all the spinning babies exercises, and they were having me walk up and down the stairs. I was exhausted. I just wanted them to go away. The midwife kept asking me about vaginal exams. She wanted to assess my progress. I was already on the clock at the hospital. So I was really stressed. And then at my last cervical check, it was horrifically painful. I was 6 centimeters dilated, and then labor just stopped. Everything shut down. My cervix actually closed up again. I didn't even know it could do that, but it did. It closed up right on my midwife's fingers. It's like, nope, not doing this. However, I knew I wasn't going to the hospital. I knew that. So I asked, how is my baby doing? Is my baby okay? Yes, my baby was fine. My waters were still intact. I was good to just go to sleep. So I sent the midwife home. I sent the doula home. And then I didn't call the midwife back until I was pushing the next night. So after 16 hours of rest where I was eating, I was sleeping, I was just processing my feelings, I got the idea in my head that I wasn't calling the midwife back until I was pushing, just so I wouldn't have that stress. And that's when I went back into labor. It was about 5 hours. It was very, very mild. And I was quite surprised because I was hanging out in the pool and it was all good. Like I could breathe through the contractions. I could vocalize through them. I was able to basically get into my labor trance that I had done back when I had been in the hospital. And I'd been high on the gas in the hospital. But this was me getting high on my own labor hormones. It was incredible. It was like the deepest meditative state I could have possibly gone into. I was in another world, a world where there was no pain. There was just me and my baby, and I was completely connected to her the whole time. I was connected to my intuition. And then I had the mother of all contractions, and I'm like, oh, this is active labor, but it wasn't. All that pressure was her head coming down, the bag of waters bulging, and then it released. And I'm like, well, there goes my call birth, because I wanted to see if I could birth her in the amniotic sac. Didn't pan out. But then her head was like right there. and then she came out. And it was about 10 minutes from my waters releasing to my baby being born. The midwife just got there in time as her little ears were poking out. So the thing is that when you do that, when you recognize that your body is going to do this, it's incredible, because I was about ready to get out of that pool and go to bed. I've seen this with another one of my clients, Rebecca, who I don't have slides for. However, basically what she did is she'd had a previous induction that had turned into a C-section. She got tricked out of her VBAC the first time. And then what happened is she was pregnant with her third baby. She went through one of my empowered birth workshops in the summer of 2021. We worked together for 3 months. I helped her through her fears. I helped her partner through his fears. They ended up having an unassisted home birth after 2 cesareans. And she had a very calm labor as well. So she had a longer transition period and she had some very intense contractions, but then she would sleep for 7 minutes or 5 minutes or even 2 minutes. And then they would space out again. And then she would sleep some more. And then even when she was pushing in the pool, she was still taking rests. So where I had fetal ejection reflex babies coming now and out in 10 minutes, she was pushing and then she would go to sleep and then she would get up and she'd push again and then she'd go to sleep. So your labor does not even have to follow the typical patterns that the medical system says it does. You can have a very mild labor and still have a baby. You can still have a labor where there's not a lot of pain and baby is still coming. You don't have to think that if your contractions are not super strong, that you need to ramp up with Pitocin or break your waters. But this is what the medical system does, because the medical system isn't trained to facilitate physiological birth. There's multiple birth traps that undermine your natural ability to birth. And it's built on profit, convenience, and liability. Basically, the medical system is a business. They need you to fill beds, empty beds, get through the system as quickly as possible. It's not lucrative for you to show up in early labor and take up a bed for 2 days. So they really want to push you through the system. This is why I also tell my clients to wait until the last possible minute if they are planning to go to the hospital. You can also wait till the last minute for a midwife, because midwives have some restrictions as well, depending on if they're certified through the medical system or not. There are underground midwives who are happy to just wait and sit in the corner and knit, which Dr. Michelle Odon actually says is the best way to facilitate physiological birth is for a care provider to sit on their hands. However, the medical model of birth assumes that you're broken until proven capable. There's a lot of misogyny involved in this. You have to remember that when medicine was first invented, women were literally property. There's a whole cultural, societal, and historical context for why we have these problems in the medical system. And unless you understand that, unless you understand the attitudes that are being perpetuated, it's not going to help you. So fear and control is actually embedded in the system, and it undermines your confidence and your intuition. Now, let me just tell you Jenny's story here. Okay, Jenny is one of my absolute favorite clients and one of my favorite stories. So she came to me a couple of years ago. She said she wanted to learn everything that there was about birth, and now she's actually teaching some mindset techniques and she's teaching how to navigate hospital birth. But here's what her story is, because she just had her baby last year in August, and she had chronic high blood pressure, gestational diabetes. She was over 35 and she had a previous cesarean. It was actually a very traumatic cesarean. And when she found me, she had even said, I don't know if I could ever have another baby. I wanted 2 kids, but after what happened to me, they're not going to let me have a VBAC. And I said, they don't have to let you. So the thing is that we live in a community that doesn't do VBAC, and they don't understand physiological birth. They don't know how to sit on their hands. I learned this firsthand in how I was being treated in the hospital. They really didn't like that I kept saying no. Well, with Jenny had so many high-risk labels attached to her. They really did not like her saying no. However, in the coaching that I did with her over the year, she was able to communicate with her care provider to be able to get this amazing birth. Her medical professionals, the doctors that she was talking to and having help her with this, they were more concerned about her high risk status than she actually was. However, in the end, with what Jenny was learning through me and through our programs, she had an unassisted vaginal birth after cesarean in the hospital. She stayed at home as long as possible. In the late afternoon, her waters had released. She was laboring all through the night. And then at about 5 a.m., she and her doula and her partner, they headed off to the hospital. And then baby was born within the hour. So the thing is that the nurse who was at that hospital did not believe that Jenny was in actual labor because of how Jenny was coping so well for being so far to the point where she was pushing. The nurse wanted to do all the things, but Jenny was aware that there was a checklist that the nurse was following and that she didn't actually have to follow that checklist. So Jenny was able to stand in her power because she had a lot of support and she had the 5 pillars of empowerment, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. So lesson number 3, though, because this has been so unheard of, whenever I tell the story of what Jenny did, people are just amazed. It's like, how was she able to do that? The lesson here is that our society and our culture has been brainwashed to fear and distrust birth. So TV and movies don't typically show physiological birth, but they show emergency labors where there's lots of fear and lots of pain. How many times do you see where a mom is she's heavily pregnant, she's about to pop, and all of a sudden her water's released and she's got immediate pain? Well, that's not actually how birth works. It's not going 0 to 60. Maybe if you're being induced, it's 0 to 60, but in a physiological birth, unless you're going to be birthing within 2 hours, which is completely different, you could just have very mild contractions. They could go on for days and they could start and they could stop and they might not ramp up right away. This is why I tell a lot of moms, please, whatever you do, when you're in early labor, just go take a nap, just rest, do what you need to do. If you need to change positions, do that, but mostly do not try to get things going. Because if you're trying to get things going, your body is actually thinking, hey, there's a tiger in the area. Nobody's in their cave yet. We need to get to our cave. I keep signaling these contractions to let mom know she needs to get to the cave, but it's not working. So I'm going to ramp it up a little bit more. So you have more painful contractions, but again, it's telling you to get to your cave. You have to remember that even though we are in a modern society, your body doesn't know the difference. Your brain doesn't know the difference. As far as they're concerned, you are still a mammal. You are still out in the wild. There's still tigers out there. You need to get to your safe cave. However, most mainstream birth education out there, it reinforces hospital practices, which is dilation and labor progress and labor positions and baby's position and telling you that your body is somehow defective and broken. And most studies are written and funded by medical professionals. So it doesn't actually make sense for them to fund a study about the value of not touching a client, not touching their patients, not doing things, not introducing drugs. Because first of all, there's no money in that. There is no money in physiological birth. So because there's no money in it, it's not being studied. Your older relatives who are also saying that birth is dangerous or that something traumatic happened to them, they may not realize that it was birth trauma. They may not realize that birth actually isn't that dangerous, and it was what happened to them by the medical professionals that led to those outcomes. Oftentimes, this is as simple as vaginal exams. They can stall your labor. Or they say, you know, you're not progressing because they're scaring you. And so they ramp up Pitocin. Well, Pitocin is painful. It is having your body basically hijacked. Your hormones are hijacked. Your natural endorphins are not able to be produced. It doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier. Breaking your waters is another natural birth trap. So the thing is, again, though, if you are saying I'm going to have a home birth and nobody in your family has done this, there's a lot of fear and mistrust and distrust of birth has been basically perpetuated in our entire culture. So those are the 3 lessons you really need to understand, is that your body is going to do this. It's a physiological process. You just have to get past your own fears. And not only that, but you also have to recognize the medical system is not going to help you have a physiological birth. You're going to have to teach them. The only way that you're going to get a physiological birth without fighting, begging, or compromising is if you are in the driver's seat the entire birth experience and pregnancy experience. You also have to be the one to be like, I'm not hiring this care provider because all they want to do is control me. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. So this is, again, why getting educated just doesn't work. Because yes, you can absolutely learn everything you can about physiological birth and labor coping strategies and natural birth. However, I did the same thing. I did the exact same thing when I was planning my natural birth. I took all the birth classes. I hired a doula. I hired a midwife. I basically consumed birth for 9 months. And I thought I knew everything. However, I was missing this piece. I was missing the piece that was like, it doesn't matter how much education you have. It doesn't matter how much you know that your birth is natural. The medical system has their own agenda. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's control. Sometimes it's that bottom line. Hey, we didn't have anybody to do an episiotomy and we need to teach our residents. So we're going to tell this mom that she needs an episiotomy so that this resident can do it. Yeah, this is a thing that happens. Or, hey, we need to meet our quota for the money that's coming in. There's no money in this natural birth where nobody is doing anything because they're not paying for the drugs. So we're going to push this mom into having an epidural, because otherwise the anesthesiologist is not going to get paid. We can't do that. Or some doctors, they just like doing C-sections. They find natural birth boring. It's a bunch of sitting on their hands and they don't like to do that. They love surgery. Well, you know what? If there's a doctor who absolutely loves surgery, then if you need a C-section, they're a great fit. If you're choosing to plan a C-section, they're a great fit for you, but you're not. You're planning a natural birth. So you don't want to go to the doctor who happens to boast the greatest C-section rate and be really good at doing C-sections. And this is what a lot of moms do. So they go into the mom groups and say, hey, which doctors are out here? And they say, oh, so-and-so is great. He did my C-section. Yeah, you don't want the one who's great with the C-sections. You want the one who's going to sit on their hands for a physiological birth and trust you to do it. You also need to know how to talk to your care provider in a way that allows them to impart their knowledge, however, not be confronted when you say no to what they are suggesting, and they can work through their fears and maybe learn a different way of doing it. And that's what Jenny actually did. Because she was high risk, her care provider had a certain idea of what needed to happen and was very, very uncomfortable with Jenny saying she wasn't going to get Pitocin. And Jenny had to work through that. And so she teaches a lot of mindset tools and ways that we communicated. I helped her, I coached her, and then she took it and made it her own. And this is basically the basis of our system. Now, the other reason why education doesn't work is this. You grew up believing, for example, that pregnancy lasts 40 weeks and that it's dangerous to go past your due date. Now, later on, you get education that says that your due date's a guess date. The average gestation of first-time mom is 41 weeks and 3 days, not 40 weeks. However, you've now reached 40 weeks. There's no sign of labor starting, and you really don't want an induction. But your care provider is citing the data again that it's dangerous to go past 40 weeks, and they schedule your induction for 41 weeks. So what do? Because the fact is that you had this old belief and you've got some new information, and now your care provider is kind of perpetuating that old information. Who are you going to believe? Who are you going to trust? Here's another example. You desperately want to have a VBAC, but your family insists it's dangerous. So you find information that states VBAC is a reasonable option for most women, and that the risks of a repeat C-section are actually higher than the risks of VBAC. Now, you go to your care provider, and they're VBAC tolerant, which basically means that they'll only allow you to have a VBAC if you go into labor before 39 weeks and your baby isn't too big and you know that the evidence doesn't actually support that, but your doctor insists you have to have a repeat C-section just in case. So if they want to put you on the schedule, they're saying, okay, well, we'll schedule your repeat C-section for 39 weeks. If you go into labor before that, then you can have a VBAC. But if you go into labor after that, it's not going to work. You need to have a repeat C-section because uterine rupture. So what do? Well, your mindset is actually what's key here. So if you know that the risk of induction is not as great as the risk of an unwanted emergency cesarean, or simply that your birth experience deviates from what you want, and you grew up being taught that you can make your own decisions, then you might be able to throw out the old belief easily. You might be like, yeah, no, that's not true. Same if you've done your research for VBAC and you know that most women achieve a successful VBAC. However, if you were also taught that your doctor's the expert and you have to defer to all authority, and you may be in conflict with what you know, because there's social expectations here that you follow your doctor, you trust your doctor's very nice about it, or your doctor it seems to know more, they have 20 years of experience. And even if it doesn't sit right with you, even if your instincts are telling you that this is so wrong, you go into the mom groups and you ask, and then you get a whole bunch of answers. And some of them are like, well, your doctor knows best. You should just talk to your doctor. Now, your doctor might even be basing their recommendations on outdated information. They don't have time to sit there and look at all the research. They tend to just practice a certain way. It works for them, and then they just keep doing it. This is another reason why when you're going for a natural birth, you really need to train your care provider. So here's the thing, is that it's actually called cognitive dissonance. This is a psychology term, and it refers to a situation involving a conflict in your attitudes, beliefs, or behaviors. So if you believe that birth is inherently painful, passive, and that you have no control over it, then it's going to be difficult to take control or make decisions that are more based in evidence. And because they conflict. They conflict with your beliefs. You've been taught to please other people. You've been taught to compromise. You've been taught that you need to convince others. How many times do you go to your partner and you try to convince them that you should be allowed to have a home birth, instead of actually sitting down, having the conversation, going through their fears, and then still standing for what you want, not compromising on it, being like, no, this is happening. You've just got to get comfortable with this because I am not changing my plan. Not give in because your partner is scared, because the partner is not the one giving birth. You are. You're the only one who's going to experience this fully. And your partner will probably feel really guilty afterwards if you go along with what they want and it wasn't actually what you wanted, and then you get traumatized, or something just that happens that you wish hadn't happened and wouldn't have happened if you'd stayed home. Your partner is feeling that, and it can affect your sex life. Same thing with your care providers. If you're going in with your care provider and you're trying to bring evidence to them, some of them will just dismiss it as like, oh, Dr. Google. Or some of them don't even have time to go through all that evidence. They just have their insurance company talking to them and saying, look, like, you can't be offering moms to go past 43 weeks because we're scared of this scary stillbirth stat. Even though there's a higher risk of C-section, the insurance companies are looking at their bottom line. The hospital administration is looking on the bottom line. Even if your care provider believes you and wants to support you, they may have things like colleagues or just their governing body, their colleges, that expect them to practice a certain way. And unless you know those loopholes and you know how to have those conversations, it's just going to be like fighting an uphill battle. So you may want to have an empowered birth where you're in complete control, but if more than one of your beliefs conflict, you're going to struggle to take action. And if you don't optimize these 5 things, then any one of them can actually derail your birth plan. So I call these the 5 pillars of empowerment, or the 5 pillars of empowered birth. Basically, these 5 things can be applied to all areas of your life. But for the purpose of this, I can also tell you that it applies very well for birth. In fact, Jenny used these 5 pillars. Rebecca used these 5 pillars. I used these 5 pillars. This is how you do it. This is how you actually get whatever you want. Create your dream life, create your dream birth, any way you want. Once you optimize the system, you can take it into your parenting. You can take it into your career. You can take it into your relationship. These 5 pillars are so powerful that it allowed me to get out of a 13-year abusive relationship. It allowed me to create my own business. It allowed me to have a home birth without anybody touching me, without even calling the midwife until the last minute. These 5 pillars have allowed a woman who was told that she was high risk to go on and have an unassisted VBAC in the hospital. This is the 5 pillar system that a lot of books, like, they don't even know to do this. This is something I discovered myself. So what are the 5 pillars? What do you really need to do to get an empowered birth? So you need the right mindset. You need to challenge the attitudes, behaviors, and beliefs that don't serve you. And I have a whole system around challenging your beliefs and behaviors so that you don't even have to try to figure that out on your own. You also need to acquire new information that outweighs the old beliefs and fears. You need to reduce the importance of those negative beliefs and attitudes. You need to surround yourself with positive birth imagery and stories. You need to see yourself as the decision maker, not in shared decision making, not in deferring to the experts, but you are your own best expert. And you need to believe that this is actually possible for you, even when everyone around you tells you that you can't do it. The next thing you need is the right education. You need to know about your rights to informed consent and refusal. You need to learn all your options in birth, not just the menu options that your care provider, family, friends, and social media would have you believe is possible. You need to learn about true birth physiology outside of a hospital setting, because oftentimes care providers are not seeing true physiological birth in a hospital. The environment isn't right for it, so it doesn't happen. You need to seek out birth classes that are outside mainstream. Definitely do not take a hospital birth class. They will not teach you natural birth, even if it says natural birth in the title. And then you need to also read books that are written by midwives and doulas and independent childbirth educators. The books that I really hate the most are the ones that are written by doctors, where they have the PhD after their name, and they talk about the dangers of home birth. And you can tell just by reading it that this is medically managed birth with the model that your body is broken and defective, and you need to defer everything to your doctor, and your doctor will keep you safe. Next, you need the right environment, and it's one where you feel safest to let go of all inhibitions. As a general rule, if you wouldn't have sex there, you probably won't be able to birth there effectively either. If you hate being watched, you need to choose a setting where you're not going to be disturbed. You're a mammal, and mammals do not give birth when they feel a threat. The right environment, it can be a hospital if that's where you feel safest. However, you also need to know which hospitals to avoid and how to make your hospital environment more home-like and more physiological birth friendly. A doula can also help with that, but you need to know ahead of time what is going to help you to get that right environment. Again, if you're in a really crappy environment and you're trying to have an orgasm, it's not going to work. Same thing for birth. So next, you need the right facilitators. You need to choose a care provider who supports your birth plan before you even hire them. This is why I say you need to create your birth plan first and then take it to your care provider to recognize whether they're actually going to support you. The other thing is that a lot of moms, they think that hiring a midwife is enough to get a natural birth. I wish that was the case, but seeing what's happened to a lot of my friends who were with midwives, I know that that's not possible. I know that the medical system, they really try to control midwives. And when midwives are under scrutiny, they end up practicing more like midwives. There are also some midwives that do not actually follow the midwife model. They're just nurses that have decided to take on additional birth attendant training. So you need to really do your homework, and you need to interview them and spot any potential red flags. You need to choose a childbirth educator who teaches the kind of birth that you want to have. So many just teach standard hospital birth with interventions. And as a result, many times you end up with interventions in your birth, or they teach coping methods and they make it seem like you need coping methods for your birth. While these are helpful, again, that's not the full story. Finally, you really need to choose your doula based on how you need to be supported. Oftentimes, a lot of moms, they ask the question, what questions do I ask to hire my doula? And there's a whole bunch of stuff on where were you certified and how many births have you attended? And there's not a lot of focus on what you actually need. So I teach in my programs how to actually get a doula that's going to fit you. Because the fact is, I have so many doula friends and they're all different. And they wish you would know this because they are attending interviews with you and they can tell right away that it's not a good fit, but you might be waiting until the last minute of your pregnancy to hire a doula. And then you're just desperate to find anyone who will take you on, anyone who you can afford, anyone who seems to have the best package, but you're not actually looking at what really matters. Finally, you need the right support. The people closest to you influence your birth in positive and negative ways. You may have heard this before, that you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Well, this is true for birth as well. We surround ourselves with successful people when we're trying to do things in our life and in our career, but we forget to do this with birth. We haven't been taught to do this with birth. So you really need to be able to evaluate whether people are supportive of your birth plan, or if you have to convince them. And if you have to convince them that you can do it, they're not the right support for you. You don't want to be talking about your birth with them. However, it is lonely to try to go through a pregnancy, especially when you're going outside the box of what's mainstream, what people would expect, which is the epidural or going to the hospital or having a cesarean if you've already had a previous cesarean, or inducing because you go past your due date, all of these things. But you deserve to have people around you who believe in your body's ability to do this, who believe that you are confident enough to ask for what you want, that you can have those conversations with your partner, with your care provider, with your doula. You need to make sure that you're staying away from anyone who's trying to scare you into accepting something that you don't want. Anyone who says, oh, it's not so bad, don't worry your pretty little head about it, is not going to be the right support. Your partner needs to be on the same page as you, and they need to recognize that you're the expert, not the doctor. Because if your partner is saying, honey, you should just listen to the doctor, you haven't addressed their fears and you haven't had them recognize that actually you don't need to listen to the doctor at all. You can listen to yourself. And then if what your doctor says actually makes sense to you, if it's what's true for you, then you can take it on. But you don't have to listen to other people tell you what's going to happen in your birth. And you really need to stay out of the mommy shaming groups, the Facebook groups, the forums, anywhere where there's a lot of moms who are all scared, by the way, and are all getting the wrong information, who are just going to keep perpetuating those natural birth traps over and over and over again. So when you optimize the 5 pillars, you automatically empower yourself to create your birth any way you want. So what could be possible for you if you could have a birth free from fear, anxiety, overwhelm, that you could do exactly how you want, have it completely natural, have nobody touch you, be able to recognize that, yes, you did it. Your body didn't fail you. Maybe the system will fail you if you continue to go down the path you are. But if you recognize that you can optimize these 5 pillars and you can get the right education and the right environment and the right support and the right facilitators, when you're making all of the decisions, when you're creating your own life and your own dream birth and what you will and will not allow, just close your eyes for a minute and just think how that is. Imagine that picture of getting your absolute dream birth. And as you're picturing it, then I want you to really think how you got there. Now you have 1 or 2 choices here. You can try to figure this out all on your own and take what you've learned today and apply it as best you can. But I guarantee you're going to probably fall into one of the natural birth traps. There's so many of them. And then things are not going to work as well. You're going to have a lot of fear and anxiety and overwhelm. Or you can take the second option and work with me. You can come into your Empowered Birth Academy. This is a new program that I've developed based on the coaching that I've done with my clients. It's the same system that I used with my high-level coaching clients and how Jenny managed to get her unassisted vaginal birth after cesarean in the hospital, and how Rebecca was able to get her home birth after 2 cesareans unassisted. So what you're going to do is you're going to learn how your body works and the unique physiological process and the variations. You're going to also have a more enjoyable and easy labor. You're going to be able to release your hidden fears that hold you back from what you truly desire. You're going to be able to master powerful communication tools for getting your care team and your partner on board with your birth plan. You're going to know who to hire and who to fire before and during your birth. Because the truth is, you can even fire your care provider while you're pushing out a baby. You're going to gain confidence in yourself so that you no longer defer to the experts and you don't go against your instincts. So you're going to learn the pillars. You're going to learn the right mindset. You're going to learn how to identify, challenge, and master your fears. You're going to unlearn and challenge the old beliefs and cultural attitudes that keep you from speaking up. Because we have so much in our society that has told you over and over to just listen to the doctor. Don't worry your pretty little head about it. You have to remember that up until a few decades ago, we didn't even have autonomy in our birth. We just showed up and doctors did things to us and we didn't even have a say. Informed consent in childbirth wasn't a thing until the 1990s. So you're also going to learn powerful mindset techniques so you can stay focused and confident in your ability to birth. That way, you can also master the tools to quickly get out of fear-based thinking so that you don't crumble under the pressure when your care provider tries to cite all those scary statistics on you or tell you that you have to do something. You're going to gain confidence in yourself so you no longer defer to those experts and you're going to trust your intuition. You're going to be able to visualize it. You're going to be able to picture your birth experience and you're going to be able to actually get it. This is just some of what you're going to learn with the right mindset. With the right education, you're going to learn true physiological birth and all the variations it can take. You're going to learn how to ask the right questions when making a decision. You're going to learn your rights and your options in maternity care system. You're going to learn, I'm going to pull back the curtain and show you exactly what's going on. And you're not going to get tricked or scared into agreeing into unnecessary interventions just because the hospital has a bottom line and a checklist. You're going to learn how to choose the right hospital if you are choosing to go to hospital, or choose your backup hospital if you're choosing to have a home birth or out of hospital birth. So that you can avoid getting tricked by false advertising. You can learn what you want to focus on in creating your birth space. You can learn how to create a calm and peaceful cave in the last weeks of pregnancy so that you go into labor faster and easier. Because as long as you are feeling threatened and as long as your body is picking up that you are not in your safe environment, in your cave, it's not going to work. It's not going to go into labor. You're also going to learn what you need to create a peaceful postpartum as you bond with your baby. With the right facilitators, you're going to learn what to look for in supplemental childbirth classes if you want to take extras or any other education that you need. You're going to learn the red flags to watch out for when hiring your care provider. You're going to master the powerful communication skills, and we're going to practice them that will help you avoid the bait and switch and advocate for yourself, even when your care provider doesn't agree with your birth plan. You're going to learn everything you need to know about hiring the right doula. And I have had so much experience with doulas and what they wish you knew. So I can show you the one that's going to be the best fit for you. And I might even be able to connect you to my wider network, depending on where you are. You're also going to get the right support. You're going to learn how to bring up your birth plan to your partner and get them on board. I can even help you do this. And I'll tell you how I can do that in a minute. You're also going to learn exactly what to say to get people to stop trying to scare you and talk you out of your birth plan. And you're going to get your partner to know exactly how to support you. without them having to read all the books or take the classes or watch the YouTube videos. Because how often is it that you're trying to get your partner to know exactly what you want, and you're trying to get them to read your mind, but it's not working because they're not reading the information or they don't pick up the right things. To apply now, all you have to do is go to empoweringmomsbirth.com/academy. This will get you an interview with me where we are going to basically assess whether you're going to be right for this program, because I'm not taking everybody. Seats are very limited. I'm probably only going to be taking about 10 to 15 people into this for the start, because this is my flagship program. I've just built it based on what I've already done with my coaching clients. And there's also a little bit of a time commitment on my end as well as on your end. So I really want to make sure that this would be a good fit for you. So what exactly are you going to get if you do choose to apply, though? Because I'm going to give you things before we even start the actual academy itself, just so you can get started and have the right education behind you. So you're going to get my entire empowered birth system, which I have of all of my courses that I have already created. This includes PDFs, this includes reports, this includes everything that I've created, all my lists, all of my checklists, all of my templates, and all of my courses. It's over a $500 value, just this alone. So one of the courses that I have in here is called the Empowered Birth Workshop, or Your Empowered Birth 5-Day Workshop. This is a course that I ran back in 2021. This is the same one that Rebecca actually went through live and was able to recognize that she needed additional help from me. But what she had already learned in the 5 days that I was teaching, it blew her mind. She could not believe just what was going on in the medical system and why her birth hadn't worked the first 2 times. And because of this, a lot of moms who have gone through these workshops, they end up getting their empowered birth just from this alone. I sell this usually for about a $97 value on my website, but you're going to get this as part of this special deal. The next one is the Write Your Empowered Birth Plan mini course. Yes, you did just go through the Empowered Birth Workshop, Write Your Empowered Birth Plan, but there's a whole other step where you're going through your postpartum plan. I walk you through your backup plans. I show you how to create your backup plans. I show you more about how to create your ideal birth vision. And then I show you how to put it all together. So when you combine this with what you did in the Empowered Birth Workshop, Write Your Empowered Birth Plan, this alone is a $97 value. It also comes with the Your Empowered Birth Plan Roadmap, which is an ebook that also tells you the big mistakes that you're making with your birth plan. And you're going to get my reports on how to create birth plans as well as part of this. Another one of my favorite courses is Get Past Your Fear in 5 days or less. This is actually based on some powerful coaching tools that I learned in a high-level program called Virtual Coach, where we were actually able to get people past their fears. I can do it in 15 minutes. So I walk you through these steps. The videos are quick and easy, and you actually will be able to start identifying and challenging your fears. I teach some fear release techniques, and this course is normally a $47 value if you were to get it off my website. Now, that's not all I've got. That's just some of what I have. So you're going to get the Your Empowered Birth Workshop 2021 for $97. Write Your Empowered Birth Plan in 7 days, which is another $97 value. Get Past Your Fear in 5 days or less, which is $47. However, there's some other courses as well. You're going to get your partner on board with your birth plan, which is based on some relationship coaching training that I gained from, again, the virtual coach with my mentor, Annie Lala. She's like phenomenal in what she's able to show couples how to do. So you're going to actually get a stronger relationship with your partner, help them get through their fears. And more importantly, you don't have to convince them for you to be able to have your home birth, if that's what you're choosing, or to have an unassisted birth. You're going to be able to communicate with them in a way that's going to speak to them so that they end up just saying, yeah, let's do this, even if they were resistant before. This is normally a $47 value on my website. The next one you're going to want is your first 5 steps to an empowered birth. If you are still in your first trimester, this is an excellent roadmap It goes deeper into the 5 pillars of empowerment, what you need to do, what you need to focus on in your first trimester, including getting past your fears, including choosing the right environment, having a little bit of an overview of the right education, choosing your care providers, choosing your childbirth educators, and hiring your doula. So again, this is usually $127 on my website. And then in addition to that, because I'm so committed to you getting an empowered birth, I'm going to give you an empowered birth one-to-one strategy session. First of all, if you do this, if you decide to take this on, what this is going to allow you to do is we're going to be able to get into a deep dive session. I'm going to find out if the full academy is right for you, but not only that, but you're actually going to get some help with your birth plan. We'll look it over together. I'll show you any mistakes that you're making. And this is normally a $350 call with me that you're going to get as part of this deal. Now, normally this retail value is $267 if you were to get the entire empowered birth system on my site. So I already put it at a discount on my site for anybody who wants to get the full package, because I believe that the more you buy, the more you deserve to save. So it's $267 if you were just to get this. However, this is why you're going to want to think about the academy itself, because you're going to get lifetime access to your Empowered Birth Academy, where I'm going to deliver even more trainings through email to you every single week. And you're going to be able to get that structure around planning your birth, getting the birth that you want, learning those powerful communication tools that are not in the complete empowered birth system, so that you can get the birth you want without having to fight, beg, or compromise. Now, these classes, as I said, they're going to be recorded. They're going to go through your email, and then you're going to have access to them for lifetime. This means that if I rerun the training and I re-record the videos, you're going to get the updated version. So you're never going to have a stagnated version of this. It's always going to be updated. And it's a $997 value. You're also, if you choose to sign up for this deal, you're also going to get 1 year of live one-to-one laser coaching support. So this is a $997 value on its own. Normally, my packages are about $10,000 for 3 months to work with me directly. But with laser coaching sessions, this basically means that we get on a call for 15 minutes where you give me one thing that you're struggling with. Maybe you had a really bad appointment with your care provider and they've scared you and you don't know who to turn to, how to get yourself out of that fear so that you can stand your ground and say, no, I'm not inducing, or no, I'm not having that test. This is very valuable so that you can actually get the birth you want. If your partner is scaring you, or if your partner is starting to pull back and freak out, I can give you the steps that you need to get back on track very easily within 15 minutes. I've been trained by some top coaches in their field. I've learned a lot of mindset shifts. I've learned a lot of communication tools. I've learned how to get you out of your fear very quickly. I've seen this work for my clients. Jenny had a lot of fears that came up, especially because of the way that her care provider was very resistant to some of the things that Jenny wanted because of the fact that she was high risk. But we were able to actually get her care provider to be more supportive. And not only that, but at the end, after she did it, he's like, wow, like he's learned something now. He's learned that you don't actually have to induce a mom just because she's got chronic high blood pressure. He's going to take that into the world and he's going to do better for his next clients. Jenny has gotten the birth that she wanted without having to fight, beg, or compromise. So it's a win-win situation. Finally, because you are in the academy and because you are now part of my VIP, you're going to get an access pass to all future programs and products. That means that you might get them at a discount, or you might even get them given to you as a gift. This is a priceless offer for you, because this means that as long as you are in the Empowered Birth community, you are going to be able to get more from me. You're going to be able to get anything new that I create. You're going to be able to test it. So these are on their own, like $997 value and priceless. So total with the complete empowered birth system. So with this plus the complete empowered birth system, It's a retail value about $22.91, but I'm not going to make you pay that because I believe that this should be accessible. So right now, for a limited time, you only have to pay $997. And I'm even going to go further than that. You don't have to pay a cent until we have assessed that you're right for the academy. So first of all, I'm just going to ask, is this for you? Because the thing is, as I said, I'm only taking on a small handful of clients. So is this for you? Well, this is for you if you want a completely natural birth and you don't want to have to fight an uphill battle to get it. And you're tired of being told that you're not allowed or sick of being treated like you're broken until proven capable. And you don't want to waste your time trying to figure it all out on your own anymore. You would like some support as you plan and get your dream birth, and you're willing to do the work to take your power back. Because first of all, it's not going to work if all you're doing is watching a bunch of videos, but you're not implementing. The whole difference between a course that actually works and a course that you just learn a bunch of information is the implementation. And this is missing from a lot of childbirth education, where you're not able to practice the skills. With the 1 year of laser coaching, all I ask is that when you schedule a session with me, it's after you've already done some of the work from our last session. And as I said, it's unlimited for a whole year. So you can call me up every single week if you really need to, and we can work through this, and I can help you get the birth you want without having to fight, beg, or compromise. This is true even after you're in postpartum. If you're having any struggles, I can help you. So this support is not really accessible to a lot of moms, and I wanted to make it accessible. However, as I said, the seats are limited. Because I'm offering this deal, because I'm doing laser coaching with you, I want to make sure this is a good fit for you. If you really want to apply, all you have to do is send me an email, carly@empoweringmomsbirth.com, or you can apply now at empoweringmomsbirth.com /academy. If it still sounds right for you, if you want to try it, all you have to do is apply, and then we'll get on a call. We'll schedule a call. I'll see if it's right for you. In the meantime, I will send you my entire empowered birth system. So all you have to do is click the button. It'll be like $1 to sign up. And then if it turns out that the academy is not right for you, you get to keep everything else. Like you'll get to keep the entire empowered birth system. I'll also even honor the one-to-one call, so you can call that in at any point. All right. So that's all I have for you today. If you have any questions, you can send me a message, carly@empoweringmomsbirth.com. I'm happy to answer them, and I'll see you soon.